G'day folks, Andy here from McDowall Manor. G'day. I was nominated by Nick from Nick's Allotment Diary, and also, believe it or not, by Davey from Southpaw Davey Urban Farm for the 5-question little challenge thing. So I thought, since it's been so damn rainy over here and I can't do hardly anything else, why not take the chance and do the 5 questions? So let's start. Why an allotment? Well, I don't have an allotment, but I do have a yard. So let's say, why a yard? About 5 years ago, I had a little bit of a dream about becoming a lot more environmentally friendly and a lot more self-sufficient. So I'm trying to cut how much electricity I use. You know, we tend to use a lot of dirty coal-fired power over here. I wanted to use rainwater rather than let it go down the drains. And generally get a lot more kind of semi off the grid as much as you can in the middle of a city on a tiny weeny yard. So that's what triggered me, was that really that need to feel at least some control, and to some extent that I wasn't completely destroying the environment for my kids and my grandkids. Why do YouTube? Well, I like to be able to pass on the things that I've learnt. You'll probably notice that I pass on fails as much as successes. So I'm not just trying to paint this rosy picture of, oh, isn't it wonderful, we can all do this, you'll never fail, nothing will go wrong. You know, I've had a bit of a tough gig at times with some of this stuff. The latest tough gig, of course, is the aquaponics bed is fallen over, so that's proved a bit of a challenge, and it's rained for 3 weeks since I noticed it falling, so I haven't been able to get out there much. But I also happen to be a teacher, believe it or not. Now, not a teacher in the traditional sense of the word, but I do teach cheese making as adult education classes through one of the local schools. It raises money. They run them at night when they're not using the schools, and it raises money to help the school out. So I teach cheese making up there, and also teach photography. Believe it or not, I happen to also be a photographer. Not a videographer, but a photographer. There's a big difference, and when you've seen the quality of my videos, you'll know as a videographer, I'm a damn fine photographer. How long have I been growing? I've been growing for probably about 5 years now, I think, since I last tracked it back. What do I grow? One of my first things I did, my approach I took to the yard was to put the perennials in first. So things like fruit trees, and I've got quite a number of fruit trees. I've got kumquats, I've got lemons, I've got lemonades, I've got mandarins, grape, I guess, a thing called a feijoa, which is a pineapple guava. Not that it's fruited yet, but I do have one. A little mango I put out the front just recently, pawpaws, about 3 different sorts of bananas. So a lot of that sort of perennial stuff went in first, and then I run the, you know, the annuals, the lettuces and beans and stuff like that. What I also enjoy growing a lot is the animals. I've managed to try and get that little tiny farm feel that I was chasing. So I have fish, I have chickens, I have Japanese quail, and I also have Australian native bees, which I really love. I really love having the critters around. I think it's great to show my grandkids, you know, like they can see what's going on and that they can do it themselves as well. They learn a whole lot of stuff they wouldn't otherwise learn, and they seem to love it. Like they really seem to enjoy to be in touch with that kind of nature side of things. What's my favourite things to grow? Well, I'm going to answer that in a funny way. I think the most important thing to grow is your soil. So one of the things, remember I said I wanted to be a bit more self-sufficient? We've cut our garbage output probably by at least half over here now. And the reason that's happened is because we compost pretty much everything. So there's a bit of a hierarchy in terms of waste. The first question is, will the dogs eat it? So some stuff off the leftover on the dinner plates goes straight to the dogs because, you know, they'll eat it. If it won't go to the dogs, can it go to the chickens or the quails? If it can't go to the chickens or the quails, can it go to the worm farm? I forgot to mention I've got a worm farm. If it can't go to the worm farm, then the last step is I throw it in the compost. And we've taken to composting things like tissues and paper towels, you know, paper hand towels and all sorts of stuff now. And that's been, I think, my biggest recipe for success. All that compost goes straight back into the gardens, and I'm starting to notice now my beds are really starting to teem with life. So I've got worms and compost worms in there, you know, bugs and all sorts of stuff. 5 years ago when I started this, my soil was dead. Like I didn't notice it at the time because I didn't know any better. But on reflection, you know, you could dig a 12-foot hole in my yard and you wouldn't find an earthworm. So gradually, you know, I'm building that up. The soils, well, at least the bed part of the soils, really picking up, and I'm really starting to see it in the plants. The plants are really starting to do a lot better. So that's a good thing. I might just run back to why YouTube. I did monetize my channel, so I want to be upfront about that. I don't make much money. In fact, if I make $100 a year, I'm happy. I don't do it for the money. I do it because I like that teaching element. I like to be able to pass on what I've learnt. I'm going to name 5 channels. I'll come back to do that now. Having said that, if you're named and you really don't want to do it, don't bother, honestly. I don't want this to be a hassle. But I did think about that a bit, and one of the things I thought about was to try and name some big channels in the hope that those big channels will recommend some smaller channels and help boost them and get them some extra subscriptions, and you know, that's what makes the community grow. I'm back. I found 5 channels. Oh, did I mention I also make booze? Booze of all descriptions. Beer, spirits, liqueurs. That's fun as well. Anyway, back to real world. Let's talk about who we're going to nominate. Like I say, 4 of these are fairly big channels because I'm hoping one of them will take up the challenge and nominate a few small channels to help them out. And then we've got one who's a smaller channel who I just like. So we've got Rob from Rob Bob's Backyard Farm. Rob's an aquaponics guy, grows stuff, does a lot of stuff that I have in common with him. Then we've got Mark Valencia from Self-Sufficient Me. Mark knows a lot of stuff about growing a lot of stuff. So you'll probably find he's fairly handy. I'll put the links in for these below. We've got Paul from Life in Thailand. Paul's an interesting sort of channel. Paul has some aquaponic stuff with catfish and stuff like that. And he grows stuff, but what I also find interesting is he tends to show us a little bit about around rural Thailand, which is always interesting to have a look at, I reckon. Then we've got Dale from Dale Calder. Dale's a general nice guy, and Dale does a lot of growing, obviously, and he lives on an island off Canada, which is pretty interesting. And finally, I'll mention, not such a big channel, Simon from 50 Shades of Green. Simon's just generally a nice bloke, and he certainly contributes to the community, so he deserves a bit of a leg up as well, I reckon. Like I say, all those channels will be linked below, so I'd encourage you to check a few of them out. They really are very good, actually. And so that ends the learn a little bit about Andy that you may not have known, or the 5-question challenge for the day. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.